Grace, are you ready to roll? Are you ready to roll? Hear me? All right. Does anybody have, you don't have anybody on the phone, right?
No. Okay. Check my text messages. Nope.
Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call to order the September 25th, 2023 meeting. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fitzgibbon?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Willenbecker?
Here.
Mr. Reddinger?
Here.
Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Smith will not take their votes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to report on our last executive session. We discussed real estate, potential litigation, and personnel. No action was taken. At this time, do I have public comment on agenda items? Seeing no public comment, agenda item number 1. Highway.
Thank you, Council. Matt, do you want to? I know it's easier sitting, but for the record, while you get a speaker there,
Okay.
for our broadcast, while you'll be able to.
Thank you, everybody. Sal and Ken and I had worked on preparing this 2024 budget. I think the numbers work out pretty well. There's a couple things that in the 2023 budget, looking at that are going to be over for this year. One is the library. It's going to be about $8,000 over due to some projects that are upcoming yet. And storm sewer is going to be in the neighborhood of $25,000 over because Veolia has changed their project up on Roosevelt, and I have storm sewer that I did not plan on replacing in Roosevelt quite yet, and I don't want to dig up a new street, so we're going to have to fund the purchase of the materials and have staff get it done before Thanksgiving is what their plan is. So.
Thanksgiving of this year?
Mhm.
So it won't affect next year's budget?
No, it'll just be over, the 23 budget will be over by about $25,000 in that category for that line item.
We have this in life. It's okay.
So, yeah, I found out about it a week and a half ago. It wasn't the best news for me at this point of the year. Yeah. So, I think everything else, I looked at my budget today, and I think year to date, everything is in really good shape. I don't think I have any other overages. There are a few things yet as far as equipment and minor things, office supplies, cleaning supplies, janitorial supplies we're going to purchase yet. But those are the only two items that I see going over to a significant amount for this year. Does anyone have any questions on anything for 23?
Nope.
Where we stand to date? Okay. Try to do a couple of things different with the 24 budget. I broke a bunch of things out and I moved them to categories where they seem to make a little bit more sense. As one of the council people, I believe Ms. Lloyd had brought up last year that a number of them were miscellaneous and it wasn't very clear what they were. So I moved things around. Some of the things went up, some of them went down. I believe we're pretty much at a net, pretty close, Sally, to what the numbers needed to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the things for additions, personnel, I requested to add one part-time at 28 hours a week. We currently have one part-timer at 28 hours, and it works out pretty well. We get 3.5 days out of someone for not a lot of cost because we don't have the other tangible benefit costs and everything else associated with it. I deleted one casual worker. It hasn't been filled since I've been here, and it's kind of a weird wording, and one seasonal. So I would have 4 seasonal employees next spring, next summer. I also increased the seasonal wages to equal the part-time rate to hopefully attract some people so we can fill those 4 seasonal slots in the spring and summer. It's gonna go to right around 18.26 an hour, I believe is what it is for that seasonal rate, which seems to be about what people are making around here as far as part-time jobs. A couple little things, facilities, added a $4,000 increase for maintaining 16 garage doors. To have a garage door vendor come inspect them and do the necessary required maintenance on them. Under Woody Waste, increased grinder repairs by $15,000. We're starting to take a good look at the grinder, and from what I'm understanding, it was used pretty hard after the 2011 flood. Whatever could go through it did go through it, and it took its toll on the grinder. So we're getting to the point where it's probably going to need a significant amount of work to it. Just talked to the vendor today. We're going to get hooked up with the vendor's mechanic and our mechanic on Thursday to start looking over and give us a better idea of what it may need. But anything associated with the grinder can add up fairly quickly. I'm hoping that $30,000 covers it for next year. Also under Woody Waste, added $1,300 for the Lower Swaterra Township stormwater fee. One of the things I tried to do with this budget is I tried to move things where they belong. So if something is the library or something is Woody Waste or something is Public Works, I tried to move the things to where they go. So it gives a better clarity on how much we're spending on a particular area. Training, increased that about $5,600 on the backup sheets. I think that signs them up for 10 certified specific trainings. That'll be all the highway staff, that they'll have a number of different trainings on safety things, get that knocked out of the way and get them certified in some things. Just for clarity, under engineering, that's going to cover the general consulting, MS4 rep costs, and potential grant assistance to possibly have HRG help find us money. And, you know, then we can, found money is good money. And under vegetation management, that went up, it's almost going to double. Went up $5,200 due to cost increases for chemicals. And I'd also like to begin a rigorous weed control program, get back to doing that. I think Greg had done it in the past, and we kind of got away from it for a year or two without having a certified applicator. And I'd like to try and get our turf back in shape with some fertilization and some weed control.
Can I interrupt real quick?
You may.
So Matt has several budgets, and they're all in
Right.
here. So he's talking about all the different budgets that he has. So there's some specific things under building and maintenance, which is 409, that he added 3 items that were, are you going to talk about them? I didn't see them on your sheet.
Well, why don't we go through the pages after he finishes this, and we can
Okay.
focus in on the amount of change areas and see if
Okay.
people have questions.
Okay, I'll steal one of their books because mine isn't all that up with that other stuff. Just another thing, and then we can get this paper out of the way. A couple points of note, and I think we can talk about this later on. I think it was under some capital stuff. Jenny had asked regarding costs for the library. I did some research. The library averages, I think it was around $14,000 a year for electric that we provide them, as well as the donation and their maintenance, whatever they need for those things. And there are some significant maintenance items that the library building does need, but we can kick those around under. I think the capital is where they were placed as well. But I know Jenny had asked specifically about the electric.
Well, while he's looking for a book, Sally, you want to go to page 1 and just look at the revenue and mention pretty steady from what it was last year, right?
Well, the first one is Department 409. So if you go to first, actually, do we want to go through the whole plan?
Well, we can go through some pages pretty quick and they could follow along, I think,
Yes,
unless you just already looked at it and you want to go. But page 1 is your revenue. And you can see it's a 1.7% increase in revenue that
And
we're
these are-
anticipating.
Yeah,
Next year?
taxes mainly.
Now we go to general fund expenses where, is that what you're gonna deal with on tomorrow, administration?
Yeah,
Okay,
so I was
which
gonna
page
flip
you wanna jump
to
to?
page 2, specific to Matt's, departments, is 409, building maintenance and expense. You'll see that there is an increase of about $70,000, and those are for building maintenance and repairs that Matt is proposing that we do. One is the Borough Hall interior exterior at 40,000. Roof coating on the Public Works building, which is 25,000, and an emergency generator for the Public Works building, which is 5,000. So those are the additions for 409. His next major department, if you go down to library, he briefly went through the items that he's asking that are listed here for masonry repairs, lead paint abatement and exterior painting, and the repair of the front window. So that's why the library budget looks a lot higher than it did
Yeah,
in
from
2023.
51 to 125, right?
Yeah. And these are all projects that he is saying needs to be done in order to support the infrastructure of the buildings. The next major one for Matt is 430, which is on page 3. And he's actually reduced his budget by 14.3%. Coming into 2024, and those are for all the reasons that he talked about at the beginning, for personnel and some things that he moved to other budgets, like the library. He moved those things over, the building and maintenance for the library. And the other thing I believe is that this year, because of the division of Public Works and Electric, Greg went 100% to electric, and Matt went 100% to Public Works. The other item would be the park expense. And Matt, do you want to talk specifically about,
Page 4?
yes, page 4.
Yeah, there's a few items that, need to be talked about as far as, most of it's in Hoffer. Last year we kind of did some roof repair work, and it wasn't a complete re-roof. It was kind of to buy us time until we figure out, what we want to do ultimately with the pavilion building. The quote that I had received for the doors at the pavilion was $50,000 to replace the steel doors and the frames. I estimated another 10. There is some other roof work that needs to be completed, and it will get rid of more of the really bad design roof that creates ice dams and causes us leaks. The water service, we've had numerous leaks down there. That's not really a big expense. That's more of a labor expense to rerun a whole new water line for there. And the electric panel and a lot of the receptacles, most of that was underwater in 2011, and it's still the same equipment. A lot of the breakers are corroded. I'm not sure they would trip at this point. So I would recommend that we redo pretty much all the electric, in the pavilion to make sure we don't have any hidden issues.
So what we're doing here, like when you look at line item 454 under parks, where there's an increase in 60% proposed spending next year. We added some line items to this year, the 2024 budget, that weren't in this year's budget. Specifically, we added a couple capital outlay budget items. Because of the revenue that we anticipate from tax increases last year, build out of Woodland Hills, we find ourselves with some dollars that we want to take advantage of and do these one-time projects. Now, next year, those capital outlay in 2025, if those outlay items are there, and we don't have the cash that we're going to realize in 24, we don't have 25 because other things go up, we can take those projects and capital outlay and other projects and say, okay, we got to zero them out. We don't have the money this year. You're seeing one-time smaller capital projects in this budget that you didn't see before because we have availability of funds next year to do it. And they are borough infrastructure that is needed, like the parks or this building or the library building, things that we own. You'll see later on when we talk about the fire department request, when you talk about that next week, that's a different building. That's not one of ours. So there's going to be a recommendation to take that from a different fund, not out of the operating budget.
Right,
So,
right.
okay?
Thank you.
One of the other big ones for down at Hoffer was to crack seal and seal coat the entire parking lot and paths. There are a few areas down there that I'll have Public Works saw cut out and do some paving repair, but there's a number, it's time to get that parking lot seal coated so that we preserve that parking lot as long as we can. That's a lot of asphalt, and it's easier to try and preserve it than it is to do a lot of big repairs on it. One of the other things I put in was to do a triple rail, split rail fence from Univar to about where our highway property shed is to help discourage people coming over and crossing the railroad tracks. It would run along our property line and help have them use the entrance. It'll help keep the four-wheelers and the snowmobiles out of the park because now they have to go in and out the same way the police cars go in and out. And we would do the installation. That money, the $4,000 I had there, was just for the materials. Public Works can do the install. So, talked to PD about it a little bit. You know, we're kind of, the park would be an attractive nuisance essentially for people walking across the railroad tracks. The park's there and they live on the other side and they want to get from one to the other. And we're not encouraging it, but we probably should do something about making it less accessible so that they don't cross the railroad tracks to get to our property, because a sign's not going to do it.
Where are they crossing at?
Right down by Univar's property. They come across from Pineford and cut across right there.
It's the same area the train people were in some months ago and wanted us to do something.
Right.
They've actually taken old railroad ties and built stands, and then they have railroad rails on top of it. They've cut some trees down and they had trees laying there. It kind of looked like crap. So they're recognizing an issue as well. And I think this was a relatively inexpensive solution to try and take care of a few things at one time.
Okay, what's next? What numbers?
Those are his
Sorry.
major numbers. There's a couple of things I want to bring up that,
Ellen had a question. Oh, sorry.
oh, I'm sorry.
Matt, at the pros presentation last meeting, Caitlin put as one of the priorities to, and maybe it's in here, it is the software program to start being able to tell, for parks, you know, where the needs are, where you see the major responsibilities, how you're allocating your resources. Now, not to say that wouldn't be helpful department-wide. I know it came up as parks. Is that in here?
It is not in here as yet. I did a quick look and you'll come up with 30 different varieties of programs for that type of thing. I need to do some more research. I can easily take that out of the engineering expense. You know, if we get something that's relative, I don't want to, you know, get some $75,000 thing. If it's reasonable and
Right.
it looks like it's going to work for us, I'm
Right.
sure I can take that out of the proposed budget. Or
Okay.
get it out of proposed budget funds.
Because it would be interesting this next year or so as a baseline for parks, and then what might be required to maintain enhanced park projects. You know, we've had
Sure.
those conversations at the pros meeting, but,
Yeah, Ken has noted that that's valuable, and it is something that I want to start doing some research on. It's just trying to kind of weasel through everyone and their brother
which is
has
the
a
best,
different software.
yeah, I don't know what that would be, but yeah.
We do have in the parks budget, which is on page 58.
Mhm.
There is 52,000 in there for, the pro plan engineering.
Weren't we planning on money though for a pool master site plan? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I think he's talking
Oh,
about on his
okay.
engineering budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, since it would be software, I would probably, yeah, because I think most of the parks money was already allocated for different things that council had requested as far as the studies.
Yeah, the next
Okay.
step after the pros plan would be a master site plan for the pool to move that forward.
Okay. One other thing
Yeah.
I do want to mention, is that there was an amount planned in 430 for, animal control. It's in Matt's budget for $10,000.
I
And this
saw
was,
that, yeah.
Page 40.
related to the Steelton cats.
Mhm.
Oh, it's up to 10?
That's what I put in the budget. So that's something new to this budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with what all we'll have to do there, so we can
Yeah.
flesh that out a little further.
It seemed pretty simple,
Okay.
and they all seemed to operate the same way, and there were a few choices out there, but I didn't want to go into it any further because I didn't even know if we'd be able to, like, if it would get passed through in the budget. If it gets passed through, then it's worth getting,
Find out the details.
yeah, getting more details and getting signed up for it.
Makes sense.
I think those were,
Yeah, I mean, I think
yeah,
that's
I think that's.
pretty much the highlights. When I went through it initially with Sally, like I said, some things went up 500, some things went down 700. It just kind of, I did look at all of our line items, some of the areas where we have been historically high for whatever reasons. Some of them were cut by thousands of dollars. Fuel was very high for a number of years, and we haven't come close to that. That's a volatile thing. We
Right.
haven't used much in salt for the last 2 years. That's a volatile thing. Some years we kind of win, and some years we kind of lose when it comes to those factors that we can't quite control. But for the most part, I did look over every line item and
did.
adjust it to what I believed would work.
Excellent.
Well, thank you all.
Awesome.
Anybody have any other questions for Director Miller? Thank you very much
You're welcome.
for your time
Thank you,
and
Matt.
your hard work on the budget. I know it's tedious.
Oh, Sally and Ken make it possible. They definitely have their ownership of it as well. I just appreciate the continued support that council provides the department.
Absolutely.
For Greg's, if you go about halfway through your binder, there's a green page that begins the electric fund.
Is there a
Does
page?
council mind if I come up and sit down, please?
No, actually, I was thinking that.
I've got a lot of papers and I know they'll just keep falling if I stand up.
Next year I need a tab. I said next year I need a tab.
You mean a soda?
Okay.
So, just a quick update of the 2023 budget expenses. We're still doing really good as far as staying under budget, with exception of your normal line items such as a vehicle repair, which went astronomical, the last couple of years with supply chain issues and everything else that's going on. We made an adjustment in 24's budget for that because this has been gone on for a few years, and we thought it was time to adjust that. As far as 23 goes, I'm not sure if Sally did any revenue projections, but as far as the electric sales, we're just slightly under in 2023, but you don't know until we get into the
Winter.
meat of it here in December is where you want, hopefully to make that up with a cold winter. But now I just watched News 8, and they were talking about an El Nino, which
Right.
kind of means a warmer winter for PA. I don't know if that's
yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So, and as you know, our power purchases and our revenue are usually always climate affected. So, summer wasn't extremely hot, but we did have a good run there. The other week we had some 90-degree days, which made up for some lost revenue, I guess, in July that we didn't really have many hot days like we did. So we're holding steady around the 5.5 where I thought we were going to be as far as the power purchase, the $55 a megawatt, which is still good. Other than that, if you don't have any questions, or if you have questions of 2023s, I'd be glad to answer them. We'll move on to 2024. 2024, couple minor increases, and again, they go back to projects. One of them being we increased our electric distribution system maintenance due to pole replacements. We have over 140 poles we're going to be replacing over the next couple of years, and that's a lot of costs associated with that. We are winding down here with Woodland Hills, which is another good thing because the costs for that were significant the last 2 years. We probably paid double for everything, and had I'd known it, I would have ordered everything ahead of time, but it's just one of them things. We don't have the area to store, or we would have done that. Uniforms, we have a slight increase. That's no brainer. FR gear has gone up. Our maintenance and repair in our equipment has increased, along with the vehicle maintenance. All those have we adjusted the 2024 budget for the said increases in cost to the borough. On the back, yeah. Substation maintenance and repairs is another one, and the thought process behind that is I'm going to have Mill Street gone over with a fine-tuned code. That way, when Spruce Street is offline for the build, I don't need any issues over there. So we are going to have an engineering crew come in, a field crew come in, high potential testing, and we're going to do get all our tests in a little early, get a lot of cleaning done on bushings, tightening, connections, you name it, have everything ready, do some infrared scanning and so forth. But and probably some oil filtering, which hasn't been done in a long time. So I want Mill Street to be able to handle it. And just so you know, like if one transformer would go down in this town, if we're on Mill Street substation, Spruce Street's totally off the grid, one transformer at Mill Street can handle the town, which is always, we have that redundancy built in the mill. That redundancy is going to be built into Spruce Street too. So if there were a flood at Spruce Street, then all of a sudden a squirrel came into Spruce, for some reason is 6 foot long and took out a bushing on one of the transformers, one transformer can handle that town. So that redundancy is there, and it's something that you normally don't see in other places, as far as, power goes.
So Greg, are you saying that, we'll have 4 transformers, 2 at Spruce, 2 at Mill,
Correct.
and of those 4, 1 of the 4 could run the whole thing?
Correct. They're multi-tap transformers, so I won't get into a big discussion, but transformers, the bigger the transformer, if there's not a lot of load on it, will suck energy and use energy. So you try and buy your transformer, size them for the load that you have. But these transformers are multi-size, so they're 12, 16, 20 MVA. So our load is averaging 15. We'd max at 18 in the winter. I would not, and the transformer is good for 50% overload for 24 hours. So I would not be afraid. If you put a garden hose on it, it's probably 100%. So.
So Greg, when Spruce Street is completely offline, the redundancy is there are 2 transformers at Mill.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure, like I said, everything's in check and everything is dotted and crossed, and we're ready. That substation is ready. So we've been doing good as far as outages there with the animals too. So that was a big plus.
Remind me how long Spruce Street will be offline,
I don't.
or just a.
I really don't
ballpark.
know the answer to that question because it all depends on what they have to dig in that area as far as any equipment goes, which I don't think is a lot. I think it depends on the transmission line, which is going to be, or the transmission pole, which is going to be sitting right there. So if there's a way we can temporary it and still keep Spruce going longer than expected, I mean, just us moving it is going to keep it up and running a lot longer.
Yeah, we've shortened what we originally projected
Yeah.
for it to be offline by.
So
the other
I
location.
just don't
Got it.
think it's going to be online 100% of the time
Right.
until the other one's built. I would say you'd look at 70%, 60%, which is better than 0.
That's right. That sure is. That
Question-
sure is.
Question for you. When the new substation becomes online, do you have a decommissioning plan in place to break the old substation down and even salvage some of those parts and put them
Yeah,
in storage
Yeah, that's all part of in the bid specs.
for somebody else to decommission it?
Correct. Yeah, that would be in the bidding.
No, I'm thinking for us to decommission and store some of those parts.
Those parts are
Pretty old, huh?
very old. There's nothing in that substation that I could say
There's nothing that we could even use down.
no.
Nothing.
What's there at Spruce now is a different size than what's at
They're-
Mill, right?
Well, the breakers are all just old Allis-Chalmers in cabinet breakers.
I just know how hard it is
if
to
there
get.
is something, it is
I
our
just-
equipment.
I just
So-
know how hard it is to get stuff. So I was thinking
Correct.
if we were going to decommission,
Yes.
Could
It's-
something be
it's a
used as an
very
emergency
basic
backup?
could something be, stuck on a shelf, stuck on
We would
storage?
keep it. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, just when we go to, if we're going to hire somebody to do that, then we need to, because they may come in and
Identify what that might be.
they may
And we
bid
do
for it
that,
to
and we
keep that
do
stuff.
We
to
do
rec-
that on any job. We identify what comes back to the borough, what stays, or what they can junk and get the money for. So, but yes, so that's kind of the increase as far as what we put in for the substation, and I know it was only $10,000, but some of it I plan on getting in this year. So, and I saved enough this year on some of the testing that if we split it up between the 2 years that we will be okay. And the only other increase again was a $10,000 increase, or probably 9%. I don't know if you have percentages on here. That's to the distribution center, and like I said, that's going to be for our pole replacement program. Power contract, we kept the same. Like I said, I've been monitoring our purchasing, and I have not gotten the PJM rates for our pass-throughs for next year. So I'll have to, see when they come out. I think it's here in the fall. Once we know that, then we'll know whether or not next year's going to be. But we've been right on with the 4 million. I think last year we were pretty close to being right on. And that's basically all the changes as far as the equipment goes. As far as benefits, of course, we have the natural, unfortunate increase in cost of benefits. I think, what is it, 5% across the board?
So for 2024, there is actually a 3% salary increase across the board, pretty much. There is a 6% increase in medical benefits and a 6% increase in insurances.
I'm sorry, 6% medical and how much insurance?
6,
Also 6.
336.
I just bumped it up a little bit from last year.
As far as personnel, the only increase or addition that we put in there, and really it wasn't an addition, I think we took out the college intern. I don't see that in there, but is for a part-time supervisor for possibly the retirement of me, to be able to stay here and just help whoever we get coming in, because that's not a job that someone is going to pick up right away. It is.
Right.
Ken and I talked about this, and like I said, I've been groomed for 20 years in the management side of it, and I still get I still have this feeling that there's things out there I should be knowing and I'm not doing. And it's just, you just got to keep grinding, and you go to any conference that you can go to, any training sessions you can go to, and that's where you learn. But that takes a lot of time, and for someone new coming in, and my suggestion is that the borough actually look at an electrical engineer.
Greg, you missed the.
You'd be
I think you
looking
missed-
at an engineer.
Yeah, I think you missed the last meeting where I mentioned the PMEA.
I was at one of the tech
Yeah.
I
conferences.
said one of the yeah, he was there with me. One of the big things they talked about was how the electric industry and rates and everything's getting so much more complicated, and that's what he's referring to as far as an engineer. A lot of these boroughs now have their own engineer, either with a
Right.
supervisor or an engineer as a supervisor, and so that's what he's talking about.
How's our lineman situation looking?
It's good. We got a good set of guys, and I keep any training that comes up. PMEA had received $120,000 in grants, so all the training that we've been doing has been free for them, which is great, because
Are we still short on linemen?
one
We do have that in the
Yes.
plan,
So,
alignment.
one.
so Saturday I actually bumped into an old friend / acquaintance of mine. He's a first class lineman with Med Ed. I put a bug in his ear, a little younger than me. I was like, hey man, and he grew up in Lowesville. And I was like, hey man, are you looking? Maybe, Burrow's looking for some linemen. And you know what he's making at Med Ed? He said this year he's going to push 210, 220. Or, yeah, 210, 220
Yeah, I believe that.
with overtime.
Yeah.
With overtime.
He's
Yeah,
like, dude,
but
I just
even
can't.
without overtime, he's probably won.
I didn't get into that with him,
40?
but he was like, dude,
30.
he's like, you don't understand. He's like, the overtime, he's like, I'm going to push 210 this year. I was like,
Too rich for our blood.
Yeah, he's not coming here, is he?
Until he gets older.
But he gets older, and that's usually when you
And he
see
can't
him.
climb poles anymore, right?
Well, when they
No.
don't want to travel.
well, he did say
Yeah.
he does a lot of traveling, and he sits on a crew that deals with outages, and he said, dude, we'll just sit for a storm during storms, and he said, even if we don't get out of the truck, we're just there.
Yeah.
And he said, we're just on standby to be dispatched for storms, and
Well, I will tell you,
as like a backup crew almost.
a couple of weeks ago, we were out of power for 20 hours in my neighborhood.
They would hang me here.
Yeah.
Someone would-
Oh, can you imagine?
20
Yeah.
I can't
hours.
imagine.
They would
And
they
I
would want to
thought-
tar and feather.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, this wouldn't happen if we lived in Middletown.
Right.
We wouldn't be out
That's right.
for 20 hours.
It happens right in Londonderry sometimes.
all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Somebody out there, yeah.
Yeah.
All the
But-
time.
May I ask, just as a point of interest, how many years' experience do you think you'd like to see in that assistant electric director as and as an engineer?
I haven't, I'd have to talk to Greg. I haven't
Okay,
talked about
I'm just-
that yet.
Yeah.
For an assistant?
Well,
Well,
the
Or, oh, you mean
You're
for the
replace-
full-time
yeah.
engineer?
well, yeah, yeah.
For the, yeah. That's gonna be the issue, because any engineer, I shouldn't say any, but most engineers that are in the business are at places like MedEd, PPL, where they're making $100 and some dollars an hour. They're making good money at some of these places.
Didn't Chambersburg get their guy? Was
They
he
got
out of
him
school?
right out of Penn State.
Oh.
So they got a young kid out of Penn State, and that was 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and they are just now putting him into the position of kind of taking the helm.
That's what I was saying. You know, when with somebody coming right out of school like that, they're so
Yeah.
green.
Very green. And
So
they will
green.
know nothing about line work, and it's,
They'll be able to do calculations.
yeah.
They'll be able to read a
and
code book. They'll be able to take a test. But as far as really,
And see, on the other side of the flip side of it, years ago, you know, it was usually someone coming up into the group would take over as your lineman, or as your supervisor. But so much has changed since my boss, Tom Hanley, was, you know, supervisor, that he didn't handle power supply. He didn't handle, 2 SCADA systems, street light smart system, the meter system. He just started handling it.
Solar.
Huh?
Solar.
Solar being
all
EV
the solar
coming.
stuff we got to do.
Now
all
at
now
EV.
now it's the fiber optic everywhere that people are running, and it's designed. So, you know, I'm getting so many requests for fiber optics. Sooner or later, we gotta somehow shift how we allow them, because our poles are overloaded now as it is. I mean, you've seen 5 of them come down up at Rudders or up at the other place there a couple months ago because of the weight on them little poles. Well, they keep adding weight and weight, so I automatically send my stuff to our engineers for SPIDA calculations and let them. And the fiber guys hate it, because now they're getting $22,000 engineering fees, but I don't care. It's our system. I don't need their stuff that's not even has anything to do with the borough and our residents, you know, adding extra weight that can bust a pole in half.
we need to. I mean, we have so many projects. It's unreal. But we need to start doing underground infrastructure.
I agree.
And I
It
know
does look so much nicer.
even if we could put underground main from end to end, so when you come through Main Street, you see anything.
Beautiful. I agree.
Well, it's not just
but
it's not
that's,
just
that's
aesthetics,
something
but
that is way, way out there.
it's not just
So-
aesthetics. It is also storms, squirrels. You know, you're not worried about poles falling over. You're not worried about It's less maintenance. It's less
Yeah.
maintenance.
Yeah. Were there any questions on my expenses? They were really the only ones.
Well, I have a couple
And
of
she has a couple
points.
she wants to go over.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
before you do that, did you want me to, the capital outlay, I didn't really get into, because I still have the same old capital outlay that and you just can't get some stuff, you know, certain trucks, and we're waiting on that stuff. But there was one thing, and I didn't get a chance to really sit down with Ken and talk about this. But we've been talking about possibly, we have an old shed there at the police/electric compound, and there's money in there to put lean-tos along in that complex to get stuff out of the weather. And right now, our electric department is currently in 4 different places. And you talk about not being organized and having, being able to, if they gotta do this, they gotta go down to that building to get this out, this building to get another truck out, water plant to get equipment out. They're shoved in right in the building that we originally had and was great for us. Now they're shoved in just a couple bays there. And then we got pickup trucks up at the highway. And one of the things that Rob kind of kicked around, and it did make sense to me, about why don't we ever look at just taking down the shed in the back and just adding on to them garages that they put on. And at least we can have all our stuff in one spot for these guys. Frees up room for Matt, which he, if anybody's ever been up at the highway public works building at the end of the day and watches everybody try and back everything in this close, that's, it's a sight to see. So, I think it's on, I'm just trying to put it on your guys' radar.
Can you talk to somebody about maybe getting prices at some?
Yes, and like I said, I'm sorry to bring it up. Now, I wanted to talk to you and throw the, kick around them ideas, but that's something that would be, down the road. I hate to do it in the midst of a substation project, but if a substation project's a year out, which it looks like it is, for all the equipment, so, the transformers are a year out, and 2 of the breakers are a year out.
You could use the debt service.
So maybe it might be a little project, because really it's not that big of a project to add on a couple bays garage going straight back backside.
Backside of the police department.
So I'll talk to Josh and maybe get some ideas.
Yeah, he might have an idea of where they did a project where they had owned a garage somewhere, and this group could get at least
That's a good idea.
Ballpark figures.
Because as Ken said, we may be able to pull it out of debt service or electric pool cash.
Oh, yeah.
And we do, it, to me, what we're gonna gain in efficiencies is worth it. It really is.
One thing that I wanted to bring up that isn't figured, last meeting when you weren't here, Ken was bringing up about future electric rates and the impact that could have on the residents from that conference that you went to that conference too, right?
Yes.
And I had mentioned, we have 50 plus acres right outside of Middletown, about peak generation. So we have 3 years left on our contract. And this is 2024. After this, we'll only have 2 years left. So we're doing next year's budget, and that only gives us 2 years left. So we should really start talking about, like, where can we scramble some money for 2024 for some preliminary, like a study, or like preliminary, but, preliminary engineering, preliminary study.
You already voted on that. The problem was it was part of the cost of service package, but it was also they were to look at behind the meter generation for us.
GDS. Right?
GDS, correct. So, and we've already threw it at him. He was out at the conference, so I will get back to him as far as
So role playing here. If the council so wished to do like some sort of site at wherever, I'm using that 50 acres because I don't know where else you'd put something there. We have money to be able to do a study or some preliminary engineering on that.
hydroelectric.
You
I'm
down
put
for
a turbine there. I'm just a small turbine.
No,
He
no.
has money to get the consultant from
You need the
GDS
studies.
to look at our rates, which they've done. You'll have that. That'll be in front of you soon. And then the second part of that, once that was finalized, they were going to start on this. We call it behind the meter.
Behind the meter.
What would be beneficial? What would be cost effective for us here in Middletown with Middletown's layout and our resources?
What would it take to run Middletown off grid?
A little bit more than 50 for solar. I'm not sure.
Forget solar. I'm not talking solar. I'm talking generator.
Natural gas.
Diesel, gas,
Diesel.
whatever. Like what would it take to run Middletown completely offline? How many?
A bunch of generators. I don't know,
What was that Quakertown? They just did peak shaving, right? They didn't do to run their whole.
well, they can run some of their stuff.
Yeah.
They can't run all of it, but they can run some of their stuff.
They put in 4 banks of,
Yeah, I'm not
Volvo generators, and I think in each, it looks like it's compartmentalized. They hook together like big long trailers.
Mhm.
And I think they have 4 sets, and there's 5 generators, small generators in each one.
Yeah.
To, power, I don't know how much of their town, I forget what the megawatts is, but
That's what I'm saying. How many? What's a meg? So what do you need? How many megs?
How
of
many
generator?
megs?
14
wait,
meg.
14.
15 meg is what I would say average. Now, if you're in the winter time, you know, if you really wanted to, you should be up to about 18 meg.
What's sitting at 3 Mile Island?
9,
Yeah.
9?
What?
9. 3 megawatt diesels.
Sitting at TMI, not being used.
Wow.
There were 4, but one of them was stripped for parts.
maybe we
Yeah,
can
each
talk
one
to
of
somebody.
the backup generators,
I-
the hours.
And 9 would work. 9 would probably work with some.
I'm just saying, you don't have to transport them far. They're already built. You know, there's no lead time on them.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make a deal. You have to. It's not like you're transporting.
Getting them out of where they're at.
Yeah, but even that is. I mean, you know what the lead time on something like that would be right now?
Yeah, a long time.
That's what I'm saying.
Quakertown project.
They're
has
right
gone
there.
on a long time, right?
Well,
They say
yeah,
5
they
years.
did that through AMP Ohio and in coordination with the company
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When was the last
it's
time
a
they were
company
serving?
that
Power
does
source?
Power Secure.
Power secure.
Power Secure, I think.
It's not bad.
Power
Because they haven't been
Secure
run,
15
right?
years ago was trying to get into Middletown.
Dude, that's like
do
that's an
some
engine.
projects
man.
like that. It wasn't necessarily the right timing, but
I bet they'd fire right back on like this.
and they're paying
With
for
with the
it.
with the tune-up.
They're paying for theirs, pretty sure.
You think?
The debt service off of the savings
You got a
from
contact
the
for us?
PJM.
Huh?
You got a contact for
Oh,
us?
that's interesting.
You don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know who to put you in touch with anymore. Constellation owns that now. That's a whole nother.
Yeah, and I thought about the farm out here on Vine Street. You know, I looked at Lidl's.
Farm,
The problem with Lidl's is
We got 50.
It's
We
in
got
the,
50 acres sitting right there in
no for
Lebanon.
solar.
Whatever.
Oh, I know that one that just went up for sale.
Yeah, Zanakovich.
Oh, that's already under contract.
Oh, they take someone.
I was just talking to a family member the other day, and I don't want to say it's a set deal, but it's
They wanted a lot of money for it.
a one of like
15.
I thought it was 6 million or something.
Oh.
I don't know.
It was more money than it would have been. Yeah, it wouldn't have been.
But there's some like wetlands in there, and there's
It's a
some.
shame. We got properties, but
Yeah, we do.
it's just in the water.
But I was just thinking out loud, like going back to it, we were 3 years left on our agreement.
Mm-hmm.
We have this is one of those 3 years budgets.
And the trust money, rather than giving people one-time benefits because the rate goes up a little bit, that trust money could be used for that to offset electric rates.
It could.
And you can't touch it.
I'm
You
just
can't touch it for anything else but to offset electric rates. And to me, that makes sense. Really does.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe when
Yeah.
you talk to Josh, talk to him about what we may have to go through to talk to FEMA about if we could elevate some solar panels that are in that plane.
you can do canopy solar systems all the time. I've done canopy solars.
See, it's third parties. It's third parties, and they're getting,
Yeah.
investors, and investors don't want to hear
That kind of stuff.
possible. Yeah, we have to elevate because. of
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a solar system right now for an airport that is all canopies. It's in a parking lot.
out here at the airport.
Not this airport, no.
Well, they've been talking about solar, but I've been talking to
Canopies are their
with them,
thing.
hey, if you're ever interested in doing
Well,
those.
they are doing a solar project on the west end.
They've been doing a couple little ones, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what's going on there. I'm talking to another airport that
But they
I'm
have
collaborating with.
they have a large portion of their long-term parking lot is in the borough.
And it's also blocked off. They're not using it anymore.
And that would be a good place for canopies.
And I would love to have that. I think that was close to 50 acres,
Yes.
You put canopies
if
all
I'm not
over there.
mistaken. 50 acres, you would, I'm pretty sure you would be up in the 12 meg.
Sorry.
The 6 meg, does that sound right? 6 meg for 24 acres?
I have to look. I don't know.
But, okay, this has always been my thoughts for the last couple of years. The problem is you've seen how society has just slowed down to nothing, from engineers to everyone. You try and get stuff done, and it seems like everybody's in this slow go mode. I don't know what it gets depressing after a while. It does. I'm sorry. But I'm glad I have a council that's very interested and supportive of that, because I think it's important. Can you imagine if we could run our borough off of solar that was paid from that trust,
Right.
and have most of our power supply being
See,
our own?
here's my
Right.
conundrum.
Isn't that great? And
Oh
then
my
what you have
God.
to do is, you have to think long term, so you don't just suck all that profit up,
Right.
or, you have to put money back then for when those panels are done in 24 years, that you redo it again, or new technology.
Yeah.
But there's battery storage out there. That was one of the reasons why we wanted the extra room out there at Bastine's Auto Center out at Spruce Street substation, either generators or battery storage. That's making a good come around. We'll see how that does.
So I guess where my perspective is there's two perspectives. One, I'm definitely a fan of solar. I believe in solar. If we had 50 acres sitting somewhere or 100 acres, I'd say let's mobilize on tomorrow. I feel that there is a really big need, though, because of this administration and with the blackouts and the brownouts and electric. I think we almost need to do like a peak or something that we can flip a switch and we're producing our own at the flip of a switch, where it runs on a fuel system, whether it be diesel or gas. So if I had to pick which road to invest in right now, I would be like a generation.
Yeah.
If 2 years ago I would have said solar.
Yeah, we're in the Med-Ed zone. Med-Ed zone it's not like the PPL zone, so it's more conducive to do these projects in PPL zone, because they're really getting hit with high fees on their pass-throughs. Our pass-throughs in the Med-Ed zone
Yeah, but
is borderline as far as doing peakers, and that's
see
the
that
problem.
I'm not even so much. I am worried about the fees associated with. But if you look at Texas and you look at California, they're having blackouts, like
Yeah.
straight up. There's just when the administration is taking off plants
Gas
and
power
coal plants
now.
offline,
No, not coal plants anymore. Gas-powered
Yeah.
plants.
Okay.
They are closing.
when they are closing, okay, and push comes to shove, there's just not enough. You know what I mean? There's more demand than there's supply. So that's what I want to know is what can we do to secure, even if we had to run this town on gas or diesel, what can we do to do that? And I just don't. I love solar. I install solar for a living. I've made money off installing solar. I believe in solar.
Maybe when we get GDS in here and get them started on that, maybe we can find a day when he's available.
I just don't know if solar's the
Oh, it's not.
immediate
Solar-
answer
no,
right now.
Well, it's not the immediate answer, but it's one of them as far as a good
Yeah. Your
payback,
Your
because you're
vision
not
is very
paying
compelling.
for fuel.
Well, no,
You know what I mean?
100% guarantee.
Your payback on solar is going to be a lot better than the peakers, that's for sure. The problem is with solar is you're not going to do what you want to do if it's a cloudy, rainy day. You're not putting your town on a solar plant.
I'm just looking at the shit hits the fan.
So your batteries. That's
What do
where
we
your
do?
battery backup comes in.
Where are we getting our power from? How do we keep the lights on?
All right.
That's.
I love it. I'm great. I will. I'll see if I can't push them a little quicker than our.
And just who would have thought that we have a neighbor right down the street that's a nuclear power plant that isn't operating anymore and has three 3 meg generators a piece sitting there, you know, you almost can't make this stuff up. I mean,
As far as solar, we need to find a place near
I
the
agree.
borough.
No, I
It
agree.
has to, because
But we're
you're
just,
gonna have
but
transmission to
the,
run.
the thing is our staff is already stressed, and we already have a substation project going on.
I agree.
Can we do a substation project, a peak generation project, and a solar project in tandem? I'm not saying we can't walk and chew gum, but can we walk, chew gum, and run? So, we just have to. I don't want to stretch your office out any more than it already is, and we need to keep focused on the substation. We need to make sure that project stays online and stays on schedule. It's extremely important.
Right.
And maybe if we do get a new hire next year, maybe we're able to stretch his tentacles. But right now or stretch. Maybe we're able to stretch and reach out to more projects.
All right. Okay. Super.
So, wrapping this up, Sally?
Yep. So, just real quickly, I wanted to go down the electric. So revenue stayed somewhat flat, because we haven't raised rates, so we're not, seeing any great growth on that either. And I do want to talk about, I will be presenting the admin and finance budget tomorrow, but I did want to note that in the finance budget, it has gone up 14%, and you'll see it in the general fund as well, and that is all related to these bank fees that we're absorbing. And I have already worked with Jim to develop the letter. I've already got Tyler on board with getting our system set up to exclude people from using the online system and giving them other options for payment.
I'm so confused. What do you mean?
Bank fees for credit card payments. We're
Credit
getting more
card.
people paying their bills.
I thought that's what we wanted.
No. This is large commercial clients putting $30,000-$40,000 a month through the credit card, online payrolls, online payment system, and they're paying $2 per transaction, and we're absorbing the bank fees.
We need to straighten that.
So
Everybody I know is starting to charge for credit
right,
card fees.
so that's what my
We
project
have
is,
to
to straighten that out, and it's only a handful of commercial accounts, but it's enough that it's really impacting our budget. So I'll talk about that tomorrow night. The public works area, as you can see, dropped, but that's because Greg came out and went to electric distribution 100%. The other item that I wanted to point out is the transfer to the general fund has dropped about $340,000. So we were able to drop the transfer to about 6.1%
That's excellent.
without a tax increase.
That's phenomenal. Thank you very much.
And
Hard work for everybody. Thank you.
It moves more of that, keeps more of that revenue in the debt service for things that we're talking about, like the substation and other projects.
It's fantastic news.
Yay.
Anybody else have any questions for Greg or Sally on the electric end of the budget? Excellent. Do I have any general public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? We will not be going to executive session.
So moved.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Are we using this tomorrow night, Sally?
I'm sorry?
Are we using this